everyone. Welcome to The Reason We Learn. I'm your host, Deb Philman. At The Reason We Learn, we aspire to be part of the solution. The purpose of this show is to take a good, honest, potentially painful look at the way kids are being educated. We know we can do better, and this is where we'll talk about how. Let's learn something. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to The Reason We Learn. I'm your host, Deb Philman. If this is your first time to the channel, please consider subscribing to be notified when I make more content like this. This is a place where we talk about all things related to education. I'm in the business of making it better for all of you, and I hope you are too. All of the guests you will see tonight are fighting tooth and nail to improve education for our kids. And I'm so grateful to them to them for joining us. Yes, new mouth. So please like and share the broadcast. We are live. I hope you've brought your questions. That way other people can join us and get their questions answered. And without further ado, I'm going to begin adding our panel of experts, our panel of teachers to this broadcast, and we will get going. Here we go. Boom, boom, boom. And there you are. And we're still waiting on Dr. Sanders. So she is coming. As is Dissonant Teacher. How is everybody tonight?
I'm doing great.
Good.
Okay,
good to see you guys.
I'm so glad you're all here. Thank you for coming. As we did last time, there are a few of you who are new faces. So what I'm going to do is go around the circle again, have you just quickly introduce yourself, tell the audience what role you're playing now in education, just briefly about your experience. The full story is down below in the description, but what you're doing now, and if you could answer the question for them, what made you want to come on and talk to them tonight? What makes you excited to share what you know with the audience tonight? What do you want them to know? Okay, Ray, go.
Well, good evening, everyone. Nice to be here, and thank you again, Deb, for inviting me. I have been a public school teacher here in Glendale, California for 25 years. I started off in private education with Montessori, and then I taught for a year at San Francisco State University in the humanities department. So obviously 25 years is a long time in terms of a school district, and they've changed profoundly for the worse. And it's not my current project, it's a project of a parent here in Glendale who is attempting to really fight the gender ideology push in the Glendale schools here. And so this Tuesday, there's supposed to be a big protest in terms of one of the administrators pushing middle school girls who are experiencing gender dysphoria into the boys' locker rooms. And her stance is that, well, the male coaches just have to get over it, right? There's a 12-year-old naked girl in front of them, and they've got to pretend it's a boy. So that's the current project I'm helping him with in terms of, I have inside information because I'm in the school district that he can't get to because he's locked out, right? He's a parent. So.
Right. And that's an interesting topic that we may want to address, the parent is locked out topic. So let's hold, put a pin in that. All right, Michael.
Hello, everybody.
Welcome back.
So I'm a former math teacher and private tutor, and I've been involved in some math initiatives, kind of most notably opposing the California math framework now for the last 2 years since it went through its first field review. And I've also been working to improve math curriculum. I'm talking to some private schools. There's actually one that's starting up, and talking about how to improve the math curriculum, how to kind of go back to a more direct instruction approach, which I believe is more solid. Also looking at doing outreach. A lot of my tutoring work is not remediation, but enrichment. And so I'm looking at expanding the enrichment into different avenues and talking with some of the other people, actually a couple others, John Wilson, Deacon Wilson, and others, about how to maybe extend that into some avenues, where it wouldn't ordinarily be or hasn't been up to now.
Right.
And I think Dr. Sanders and I have also chatted about it briefly. So
yeah, great. And I'm so excited to see you, John. Deacon Wilson, thank you for coming. For those of you who follow the channel may have seen him on this program before. We've done some individual interviews. That's another exciting thing about these guests. Some of them have produced shows with me individually. So if you want to hear more from them, you can check out Ray and Paul and John and Teresa. I haven't done one yet with Michael, but I will, where you can get in deeper into what they do on a day-to-day basis, just individually. And I'll throw those links up as we go. But welcome. Tell us more about yourself and why you're here.
Hi, yeah, I'm the Education Enrichment Director from West Angeles Church here in Los Angeles, pretty large church. I'm pleased to be on full-time staff there, and I have been. People think I'm the Christian Ed Director and ask me about Bible college. I go, wait a minute, I said education. But anyway, I help students to do better in school, have better results. I believe in equal opportunity for our students of Black and brown, of color in the city. Also, I have now a growing group of Asian students in the inner city. I'm helping to be ready to do well in school, come out of the pandemic, lots of learning loss, lots of concern. You see in the back, I do SAT stuff for Princeton Review. We have a unique arrangement with our program. And I'm here because what I want to do is encourage parents to seek out other resources. I think Ray and I need to talk sometime offline. I felt that for some time. Sorry, Ray, I didn't do it. I feel like we need to talk, especially about that topic. I'll leave it alone right now. But we do need to talk because I want schools to keep parents informed when they make major changes. And it really upsets me when I hear they just make a change and assume a school. I think there's too much of taking away advanced classes for our students, assuming they can't do it. And that bothers me to no end. In my wit's end, I'm doing a talk tomorrow to the staff. I say it's a form of destroying future STEM students before they get started. But that's where I'm at. Thanks so much for having me again, Deb. I'm
so glad you're here. All right, Paul.
Thanks for having me, Deb. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So I was a private school math teacher for about 10 years. And I wrote an article blowing the whistle on really the rise of illiberal agendas in that school and in schools generally, in private as well as public school, things like gender ideology, critical race theory, and so on, and how that was impacting the students and the way it was being taught, really programmed. And since then, I've become a journalist. I've written more pieces. I've worked with some nonprofits, and now I'm running a group called the Terra Firma Teaching Alliance, which is a network of national teachers nationally. And we're alarmed at the rise of these illiberal ideologies, and we want to brainstorm with each other and seek out ways to bring more viewpoint diversity into the classroom, bring in and restore education to what it has been in many ways traditionally, with many improvements, but in the interest of the students. And teaching what we believe is an authentic education. We can get into exactly what that means.
Wonderful. And I also want to put a pin in the term illiberal, because I think that's something we don't talk about enough. All right, Dr. Sanders, welcome back. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Deb. Thank you. I'm Teresa Sanders, former public school educator, K-12 special education certified here in Texas. Got out in about 2018, started Safari Small Schools for the kids whose needs just weren't being met in the classroom. So I have, written, published, presented at conferences. I just presented Safari Small Schools at a conference in Hawaii last January, and I'll be back there again this January. And I also received a $10,000 grant from Vela Education Fund to help build and develop the school. And one thing I didn't get to mention last time I was on the show, Deb, is that I'm working with the education ministry in Kenya to reproduce the model there. in Kenya.
That's fabulous. Oh, wow. We'll definitely
Thank
want to hear
you.
more about that. So again, welcome. I think we might be visited by a couple of drop-ins here and there later, but we'll see. But for now, one of the things that came up in our conversation last time, and I encourage everybody who's watching now who did not watch last week's show to go back and review it, because we took a sort of a high level view of what the woke ideas, woke ideology, by that I mean critical theories, gender ideology, as John Wilson pointed out, the, expect less because, we want them to get good grades, but they really can't do the hard work and that sort of thing, and equity. We covered that broadly, I think, and some small topics came up that people asked us to go into more depth on. So one of those was the idea that education needs to be entertaining. Somebody wrote to me and said, could you all expand more on why does there seem to be a push for teachers in the classroom to, they use the word engage, but what it sounds like they really mean is entertain. And there's an increased use of technology, more videos, reading short passages rather than books, even in terms of math, watching videos, playing games, and, not necessarily doing equations, like just sitting and doing math, or when kids are learning in elementary school, memorizing facts or learning phonics, things like that, things have to be gamified and turned into some kind of, edutainment. And a lot of parents actually think that must be good, right? They see their kids so attracted to entertainment, and doesn't it make sense? Won't they want to read more? Won't they want to do their lessons more if it is entertaining? And won't the results be better? That's what's being pushed. And I want to ask you what your take is on it. And anyone can jump in here. Just go for it.
Well, I love your choice of words. I'll make this compact and quick like I usually do. I think something could be fun, but not for entertainment. The goal could be learning and enrichment, but could be fun. That's okay. And I think fun can be accomplished, or fun and interesting are different. Also, too, I think fun could be just being interesting in the way we talk and the animation. That's why I pick one tutor and not another, pick one person, not another, to be a contractor for me. You can make things interesting, and we're not, entertainment is different totally. In fact, we're going through this big thing now, Deb, of changing the name of our homework club to Enriched Studies Program. And I was telling one of my workers, once they have their enrichment, they can have some fun in the other room. We'll have some, even those things need to be challenging. We want to teach them how to play chess and how to do certain types of video games. That's my take on what you said. You can still make it fun, and you're not, the goal is not entertainment, really.
Right. Yeah. That's great. Anybody else?
I go ahead, Ray. I'll go after you.
Well, the problem here is, at least in my view, that when you say entertainment, I think that troubles all of us is that entertainment is associated with passivity, with just watching, right? Watching something, watching a show or a play, or a circus act or whatever. Entertainment has a certain sort of passivity built into it. When what children really need, I think we all know, is they need motivation. And motivation is, I think, here is what's being asked here is to disentangle the idea of motivation from entertainment. And I agree with John here very strongly, is that learning can be pleasurable, it can be enjoyable. That is a separate issue from play or from fun, because strengthening one's spirit, strengthening one's mind, strengthening one's social skills, and making oneself more efficacious is pleasurable. There are spiritual pleasures and cognitive pleasures that we all experience and children can experience directly. And that's very motivating for them. But that is a separate, I think that's what a lot of the public gets confused about in terms of, we all need motivation to pull us forward. But entertainment really doesn't, I don't think belongs in the classroom. It's the wrong phenomenon. I'll just put it that way. I'd love to hear what other people think about this particular issue.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, to follow on both those comments, I think there are several reasons why we're seeing this. Some of them are corporate, some of them are economic, some of them are that there are teachers who aren't able to give that, or don't want to give that kind of cognitive pleasure through running a class where they are the master of and control the class, and would rather use gewgaws and little bells and whistles to sort of placate and babysit, essentially, with the illusion and the acceptance of the administration that this is somehow a learning experience. Okay, it's not a learning experience in many cases. So whereas I can make something interesting. Teaching, really great teaching, is performative. It has a performative aspect. It's a personal thing. It doesn't scale very well. One of our panelists said that last time, that very astute. And everyone remembers the great teachers they had. They spoke to them. They connected with them. They made things come alive for them because they were authentic individuals, and there was an intimacy to how that relationship happened. That the point wasn't the relationship. The point was the learning, right?
Right.
So we can talk a lot about that, but I think so much of it has to do with having teachers that are masters of their discipline and can convey that passion and excitement to the class. So where technology, in many cases, I would say the preponderance of cases, doesn't add to that, it subtracts from it.
Interesting. Yeah.
I have a thought. I guess I'll go. Are you done, Paul?
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah. So I guess just this idea that engagement has sort of come to mean they're not distracted doing other things and goofing off with things that are outside of the realm of school, whatever they bring in. So now engagement is just, you've got their attention. It's not necessarily that you're doing it in a way that's helping to learn or providing math gains in the case of math, that it's doing anything other than just occupying their attention.
Right. And I would think too that if I think of engaged, I think the student is doing. So the student isn't just sitting in rapt attention watching a video or some kind of entertainment, playing some kind of game, even silently, but they are contributing to, they're doing something. It could be writing, it could be, working out problems, building something, drawing.
Drawing 100 dots on their page because that's how they're supposed to add now. I mean, my point is.
Oh my God, that's insane. Okay, it's not that. That's not engagement. That's busy work.
They could be doing
there's a quality.
Sorry,
there's a quality. There's a quality then there. That's really important that you pointed that out about the 100 dots, because so Ray brought up the passivity, and then I went sort of polar to that and said, "Oh, they're doing, but
even if it's active, it might not be instructive." That's
exactly. Thank you. Instructive. That's the quality. Yeah.
Deb, another distinction here that might be helpful is the distinction between motion and action. And in classrooms, I've seen beginning teachers, struggling teachers, there's a lot of motion going on, but not much action. I mean, for example, when you're talking about engagement, one of the standard tools is having a whiteboard, and then the teacher asks a question or poses a problem, and all the students in the room put their solution on the whiteboard, and then there's a little moment of tension, right? And then they're all supposed to hold it up. And this is called engagement. Now, it could be, but it isn't necessarily. engagement, true engagement. It could be for many students just motion, where they're not actually connected to the particular activity. So
Right.
that distinction might help also in terms of looking at good teaching and looking at caring about students, caring about their growth.
Mm-hmm.
If I may jump in here, I think as far as the entertainment factor goes, these kids live on entertainment. They're being sustained on entertainment,
Right.
graphics, sounds, colors. There's no reason to read a book because whatever it is that they have, they're not required to think about what's happening because it's all right there for them. Motion, animation, the sounds, everything. So there is no reason to think. So I think that what happens is that we get into the classroom and we assume that these kids have some base of knowledge when I am here to tell you that is a very, very dangerous assumption. And so these kids, and I'll give an example shortly, these kids frequently have no idea of what you're talking about. None. And so that's where the games and what was it, Book It and the Jeopardy and all of that stuff on the what do you, the Elmo camera, all of that comes in because you got to make it some kind of entertaining for them because they are completely disconnected. A lot of behavior comes out of that. These kids, 3/4 of the time, I've been subbing in a local district. They don't know. No, this is not an exaggeration. This is no joke. I had 3rd graders who had never heard of Martin Luther King.
Mhm.
I had 4th graders, and I'm talking 100% of the people present in the class. 100% of the people present in the class told me they had never heard of Christopher Columbus. The teacher had left. It was nearing Columbus Day. The teacher had left it was a little like one of those weekly reader type of newspaper things, and it had little puzzles in the back, and it was just a whole 2 or 3 pages on Christopher Columbus. And I said, okay, well, okay, so first let's talk about Christopher Columbus. They knew nothing about Christopher Columbus.
Goodness.
Nothing. So you know what I did? Flipped on that smart board and went to YouTube. You know why? Because that's how they can get something kind of quickly that they'll pay attention to because it's on YouTube.
Wow.
It's so let us not assume that these kids know much of anything because it's frightening that they don't. And if you think about it, well, let's see. Let's look at the last 3 years of instruction.
Right.
Let's look at the last 3 years. So kinder, anybody who's in kinder, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, what do they know? They don't know anything. And so the teachers are teaching, what do you mean you don't understand? They have no idea of what you're talking about. That's why they don't understand. So yeah, you better entertain them or your class is going to spin out. You better entertain them because
never thought of that.
And it's on my Twitter feed, I am screaming from the rooftops. You all better know what's going on with your kids in school. You better know for yourself. Don't look at their grades. Don't look at Ricky has been so awesome in my class. Trash. Can that child read? What does that child know? Look at the state standards, what the state says that the kids should know this. What do they know? How many times, and Deb, you follow my page, how many times have I said, I challenge you, the next time your kid asks you for something, tell them to write you a paragraph or 2 about why you should provide that for them. Right. And look at that writing sample. You're going to be pleased or you're going to be alarmed. One of the 2. And no one's ever taken me up on it. Most people will be alarmed.
Well, you're bringing up something very important, which is even good teachers who know better who would have done it differently, right? If they could go on as a sub, or maybe you're a parent, right? And you either used to be a teacher or you know better. You just know better and you do this experiment that Dr. Sanders is talking about. And you think to yourself, okay, hold the phone. We got to fix this. I am here to tell you, and tell me if you guys agree, that it's not as simple as I'm going to just go hire a tutor and we're going to catch them up, or well, I'm going to go in and tell the teacher, you need to slow down, you need to help my kid, and we got to get this done with. There are points where a child is behind in a way that has nothing to do with lack of understanding. So the tutoring isn't really going to fix it, right? It's not about going over it and over it a few more times in a different way till they understand the concept, which is what we typically think of with tutoring or remediation. This is about a giant gaping hole the size of the Grand Canyon in their context, in their knowledge. You cannot form new concepts until you've mastered the original concepts. And that's not just math. That's reading, that's writing, that's thinking in certain ways, even syntax. So for example, if you have a student who was in middle school when COVID hit, and they were used to reading fairly simple, straightforward journalistic style, even in fiction, very descriptive, boom, it's done. And lo and behold, they're in high school. And now they're handed something much more complicated. Okay, like, maybe Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. I don't know, just as an example. They're lost. They could be a straight A student from, middle school and the various grades, but the syntax, the speech, the way it's written, the vocabulary is like this. It's not about hiring a tutor. There's so much ground you'd have to cover. And that's not just COVID, by the way. That's COVID plus Common Core plus no child. They stopped teaching that level of stuff.
Yeah, I have an interesting thing to put onto that, which is so the district I'm in is a destination district, and it prides itself on having high scores. And we don't know the extent, but we do suspect most of these kids, and it's especially third grade literacy by the time they're in grade 3 is really high for our district. But there's this perception that everybody hires tutors. And so tutoring has now become how to make up basically how to do the proficiency so that you test well and you show as proficient. And what's missing is the context, because they're not getting it at school. So there is tutoring, and it is sort of this way of artificially boosting out the district stats, but it's also failing in the way that Deb just said. And I wonder if any of you have experienced that in your districts or where you are. Others on the
Another big problem that's feeding this is the lack of subs. I've worked in a couple of classes where the kids didn't have a teacher all year. So if a sub has been in that class all year, those kids didn't learn anything.
Right.
A whole year, the whole school year. So they're going to move on to the next grade that much further behind. And so when you have the current stats of roughly 70% of 4th, 8th, and 12th graders not reading proficiently, what are we producing in the classroom when 7 out of 10 kids can't read proficiently whatever you put in front of them? But yet, what is it, 88% of graduates are graduating? How is this? So we know that we're not teaching them. We know they can't read anything. So we're moving them on and on and on. These kids are not, a lot of these kids don't go to museums. They don't have parents or grandparents or aunts or uncles who sit up and tell them stories and talk about things. They can tell you anything about Fortnite, Roblox, whatever it is, Call of Duty. They got the attention span for that. They've got the tolerance for that. But just like the Chromebooks and the computers, no joke, they can find the pirated movies, they can find the material they're not supposed to have, but they can't attach an assignment to an email. And we wonder, and so the whole entertainment factor, it's almost my pleasure to entertain the kids, because what else do we have? We have nothing. And it's hard to teach in a class where somebody wants to learn and they know nothing. And then of course the teachers don't have the permission to scale back, slow down, to close gaps. Oh, no, no, no. They have to be ready to test in the spring. We don't have time to close gaps. Let's go. Let's keep them moving. Like somehow by osmosis, a child who's 3 grade levels behind is somehow going to wake up and pass that test in the spring.
Or
Absolutely
worse,
insane.
or worse now, they don't need to. They have the internet. And so what's happening now is even the kids are starting to equate knowledge with that stuff that lives on the internet that you can just look up or have ChatGPT do it for you, whatever. Somehow there's like a missing link between knowledge and the understanding on the part of the child that it's useful to an individual to be able to call up knowledge on your own, that human beings are computers with a purpose. We are computers plus will, computers plus values. And they don't connect that at all. Like knowledge lives in a silo over here. When I want it, I go get it. Oh, how are you going to know you need it? Blank, right? And everything over here is just, I don't know what. I mean, they don't seem to understand how
The
that
synthesis of it. They don't know how to apply it to real life.
or
And
why you'd
also
want
if you
to.
have or why it's necessary to be able to apply it to real life, but also when you have very, very limited life experiences, that knowledge may not have any immediate application in your experience. And so why do I need to learn this? What do I care about this? This doesn't have any maybe. And so we have a whole, in my opinion, 2 generations that have been trained to kind of just slide through life. I've got Google, I can look this up. We haven't even, okay, so if that's going to be the mindset, can we teach them how to vet information? Let's teach them how to vet information. Let's teach them that. We're not doing that.
No.
And so again, where does that leave us?
Yeah, I'm glad.
Yeah, I'll entertain them.
Yeah, I'm glad that you you're talking about that. I'm seeing a lot of, particularly among my males, motivation issues. Just not motivated. I'm getting more requests for. It's amazing. I get the math requests. People know we do math. I'm a former engineer, but I'm also getting a lot of. I need help with history, environmental science, biology. And my question to parent, I find out they want me to whip them and make them, be motivated to. Somebody mentioned motivation earlier. I think that was Ray. I'm not sure. And I'm supposed to whip. I'm sorry, I slipped. Sorry, y'all out there watching me. I'm supposed to make them get more disciplined, actually more motivated. It's motivation. It's not that they can't learn. We're coming up with ways now. I have a really good person who's good at that. I'm gonna give that person that job with the family, 2 families tomorrow. But I'm getting a lot of requests for subjects. Dr. Sanders mentioned reading and things like that. There's motivation issues in the older students, just not motivated. They know how to learn, but they just not came out of pandemic lazy and unmotivated.
Because for 2 years, nothing was required of them. Right. Nothing was required of them for the last couple years. And so now we want them to do something. And then particularly if they can't read it, they can't understand it. Yeah. Or this is something that I'm seeing too. It's moving too fast in the classroom for them. It's moving too fast. And I'm not blaming anybody. I'm not blaming the teachers particularly, because the teachers are chided to come on, let's go. We got to go because we have to be ready by this time. But things are moving too fast for many kids in the classroom. And so they figure, I can't keep up with it. Forget it. I myself, a grown woman with 3 degrees, have been in professional development. I have PTSD behind professional development. Professional development, no joke, where it was not immediately, it wasn't even immediate. It wasn't relevant to what I did as a special education teacher. Do you know that I struggled to be respectful and pay attention, period. Now, as an adult, I know I'm sitting in this room, this person is presenting or speaking or whatever. I got to sit here as a professional and listen. I'm telling you, and I didn't have coffee that morning. It was awful. I was like, oh my gosh. I think that's how the kids are. They don't know how this is. In this case, it wasn't relevant to me at all. Like, why am I sitting here? But if the kids don't know how this is relevant to them, I've worked with kids who figured by the time they were 20, they'd be dead. So they're like, why am I putting in? What am I doing? Be dead by the time I'm 20. So why do I need to, put any effort into this? What I'd rather do is, and they would rather do something else, and I understand that. So 3 years, these kids haven't been required to do anything, nothing. And now they're in a mindset like, what, I'm going to get a good grade anyway. So really, why do I need to do this? I'm not going to do it. What are you talking about? And it's like we have this, we just have to stop the ride, get everybody off, make some repairs, and then start the ride back up. But we have 3 years of just behind. Now there's a whole mindset that needs to be changed. You don't turn in anything, no worries, you get a 70. Why am I going to do anything? This is boring and I hate it. I'm not going to do this, and I'm still going to get a 70.
Right.
Yeah,
Motivation.
In support of what Dr. Sanders was saying, my incoming fifth graders this year, and not only my fifth graders, there are five fifth grade classes at my school. They were clearly second or third graders in terms of behavior, in terms of what they knew.
Yes.
In
They're
terms
so
of
immature.
how to socialize with each other correctly.
Yes.
And
Yes.
the one thing in particular I noticed, especially with the girls, is that because of COVID and the isolation, a lot of these children were on the phones, right, on social media, and that did a lot of damage in terms of, I can say things, I can put pictures without any consequences, without really thinking. I mean, they're not malicious children. There was no evil intent, but still inappropriate things that were not helpful in building healthy relationships with other human beings. So that was something that we've been struggling with all year long. And like, luckily, at the school I work at, we have an extremely supportive administrator. And when you're near the end of your career, you can do more than you could at the beginning. So with the reading, in particular, the reading books are just awful. They're
Oh, you have books? Wow.
well, we don't.
Wow.
What we have are these little magazines that have excerpts, right?
Right.
And
Reader, like, oh, I hate that.
and they're all entirely depressing. They're all unhappy. They're not benevolent. There's no spiritual element to any of them. And so in my particular case, I just use I just have, over the years, since I'm been doing it for a long time, I've purchased just sets of novels for young children, and we read those because they have they're true literature. They have vocabulary in them, they have a plot, they have character development. And one of the things that children, I think, desperately need to see is they need to see success. They need to see people struggling with difficulties and overcoming them in a realistic way, And so one of the novels that what I always use that the children absolutely love is Call It Courage.
Oh, that's a great book.
Which
Yeah.
it's about a young boy. He's probably 8 or 9. It's set in the Pacific Islands, before contact with the West, and he has a great fear of the water. And that's not a good thing if you live on an island, right? And it's about his own personal struggles. And for children, what does it mean to be brave, right? When you've got to go to the dentist, or grandmothers become ill, or how do we wrestle with, how do children wrestle with the fears that they can face in terms of death, and things like that. And so there's so much good literature for children out there that allows them to see the world through another, in effect, mind, another consciousness of how. And I mean, we read them as literature, but then afterwards we talk about, well, what does this have to do with us? Do we see, when we encounter a bad character in a novel, right? Do we see these traits in other people that might help us, protect ourselves against somebody who is deceitful here? What does that lead to in the book? What would that lead to in real life? And that can help to ignite a moral fire in terms of motivation, in terms of inspiration, which children desperately need. They desperately need to look up, right? To know that there's goodness in the world. But unfortunately, there, you do have that set of kids who it's really quite a struggle to get them to sit and listen quietly to the world, to their inner selves, to their peers, to their teachers, who have something to say to them when they've got that I need that 3-minute adrenaline dopamine fix from the little iPad
Device. Yeah. They don't know how to sit and be bored. They don't know how to in my class, we call it sit and be. I literally, when I worked in the district, I worked in the behavior class, and I would teach the kids how to sit and do nothing. And I'd start the timer at 2 minutes, and we, after a while, move it up to 4 minutes. And then after a while, till we worked up to 20 minutes where they can just sit, no toys, no nothing. And they would find a little string on their clothes, and they'd play with their fingers or whatever, but they learned to sit, because you may have to go to the airport, you may have to go to the dentist and wait, you may have to stand in a long line, and you can see it in the grocery stores. Boom, give them a device instead of teaching children how to wait, how to wait and also receive information. Even the posture of learning is gone. Kids slide down in their chairs and they're leaning and they're laying across the desk, and it's like, no, sit up, sit straight, put both feet on the floor, no, pay attention.
Yeah.
But again, 3 years of no expectations, 3 years of schools being closed or partially closed, instruction being either hybrid or online, or in some cases not at all. I mean, so.
The tragedy is, though, that taught a lot of people, both correctly and incorrectly, that school is necessary, and by that I mean the status quo of school. In other words, that the only way children can possibly learn how to manage their time, sit upright in a chair, hold a pencil, anything, has to occur in this building we call school. And the way it was before COVID, when all of us sitting here probably know that bad things didn't start the first day of lockdowns. So it sort of reinforced the notion that the schools were this ultra essential thing, when in fact they're a big part of the problem. Had students been in schools that were motivating and teaching kids knowledge and teaching kids the love of learning and all that, and we locked down, I'm not saying it would have been a good thing, but I think the students themselves would have been more hungry to keep something going in the interim. The parents, having seen eager learner students and avid reader students and so forth, would have said, gosh, I got to go to the bookstore and grab you some books, or order an Amazon box, or go to the library, or somehow we got to get you some material, because they would have seen that. Whereas before COVID, the kids would come home, what'd you do today? Nothing. What'd you learn? If they even asked.
Yeah.
Right? It's just this accepted thing as schools to be endured. But then they see the kids not motivated, acting out, oh, see how important school is. And I fear that it's taken some of the momentum out. I mean, we all say, oh, it's motivated parents to fix school. Yes and no. I mean, I think those paying very close attention to what was on the screens in those Chromebooks, absolutely. To those who were just, trying to get by and go to work and, oh my God, the kids, what am I going to do? Not so much.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's, unfortunately, I still find a lot of parents surprisingly well educated, surprisingly self-motivated and accomplished parents who will not believe me when I tell them that their high school student can't read. And when I say can't read, I don't mean they're literally incapable of decoding a sentence. I mean, they're reading at a 4th or 5th grade level, maybe.
Maybe. That's a hard maybe. Mm-hmm.
They don't believe me, but they're getting A's. They're in an honors class. You're insane.
Yeah, I'm seeing so much of that in SAT prep. That first time ever, I'm seeing 11th grade students that, because one part of SAT is critical reading, and they have to the answer's in the text. And Princeton Review has a very clever way of making them do that. But I'm seeing students that just have a tough time just pulling the meaning out of a sentence.
Mm-hmm.
And, this is going to have tremendous implications on college affordability, because they think they have a great student in there. I'm finding that out.
Oh boy!
I'm seeing them pre-calc and they're struggling with, their factlets, their facts and math and multiplication, and because of that period, and they just came out of it that way. It's hopefully, we'll have this period of 2-3 years of the bubble, and things will get better. But also, we need to do things in the summer. All this money unspent from COVID. Don't get me started on the money unspent from COVID that they're not doing anything with. But
shouldn't we buy some more SEL? We should buy some more SEL. That will get them to sit still.
Hey, if they would give me just 1/30,
He's laughing at me.
Yeah, if Long Beach would give me 1/30 of what they have left in COVID money, I could grab, Dr. Sanders and somebody in the summer. I'd fly her out here and grab.
And I would come.
Get Ray on down here. I bet we would turn around some performance in 6 to 8 weeks.
Man,
I can't believe it.
Don't mess with me, man.
Yeah, I know.
Deacon Wilson, don't even mess with me. Because, look, if you got a plan, let's go. Michael.
Yeah. I'm looking at you.
You better tell him.
I have to see what you said. I'm looking at you right now, wondering about family night with you. We may have to talk.
You're bringing something up, though. Again, you keep bringing things up that make me want to ask you more questions. So we're kind of not doing this in a linear way at all.
What about solutions, though? We're going to do solutions, right?
We are going to do solutions, but this brings something else up. You mentioned a couple things, Deacon Wilson. You said they can't pull meaning out of a sentence. Yeah. Well, that's what I mean by can't read. Because, you hand a kid a book and they're decoding the words, then ask them what it means, not what the individual words mean. What is the message being conveyed in the sentence of this paragraph? That's where they're struggling so much, even the ones who allegedly can decode. But the other thing you're pointing out is that catching up when done properly, and this is getting towards the solutions, can happen relatively quickly. For not all students, of course, because you do have that motivation component. But if you can get the kids initially, motivated, recognizing they're missing something, like dialed into the idea that, wait a minute, I got ripped off. What do you mean? I'm missing? It's mine that I didn't get. Then you can get them motivated. Then what I tell parents, the same ones who are terrified to admit or accept that their kid is this far behind, then when I tell them, but don't despair, because if we can nail that motivation piece and hook them up with the right program, the right people, the right, the right situation, you can cross that gap more quickly than you could ever imagine. It doesn't take the same amount of years to close
That's
it.
a fact. That's a fact, Deb. And the thing is that none of us like to fail. None of us like to encounter something that we can't do. And I know me as a human being, if I encounter something that I like, okay, IKEA instructions, I don't even try, because I know how I'm left when I look at that and I have no clue as to, and I consider myself to be fairly smart, but I'm telling you, there's too many pieces, there's too many parts, and I don't have the patience.
I'm so good at those.
And so I will call you. Then, matter of fact, I won't call you because I don't buy anything from IKEA for that reason, because it's just, no, that's punishment for me. I don't like it. But I don't like to fail. But you know what? The kids don't like to fail either. And when a child is sitting in a classroom and something is being taught and they can't follow it, and they know they can't follow it, this is not even about calling on them to read or calling on them to answer a question. This is internal. Nobody likes to feel like they're in a room and something's happening and they have no clue as to what's going on.
True that.
Talk about sapping motivation. But when you take that same kid and let them experience a nickel's worth of success, you've got that kid. I'm telling you, I just left kids, a second grader who can't spell her own name, who can't tell me her last name. But when I tell you, with Orton Gillingham, she is learning to where she cried when her mother picked her up early.
Aww.
And the work samples are on my Safari Small School page and on my Twitter page, and you can see the befores and the afters, and the time frame is not that much. If I could have those kids uninterrupted for an hour, just give me an hour, 3 days a week. I have a little girl who's trying, who's giving it everything she's got, to where she gets tearful when she doesn't understand it right away. And I have to tell her, no, you're learning. I don't expect that you're going to know it right away, but look what you've done. And I have to show her all the things that she has done, because she knows her peers are getting it. Sometimes, some of them, a few of them, 30% of them. She knows that 30% of her peers are getting it. But now she's experiencing that.
Right.
And I'm telling you, Deb, you said it does not take long to close those gaps.
Yep.
But we have to let kids taste success. If we think that driving them to be ready for a test that they're not going to pass, and they know they're not going to pass it. They know they're not going to pass it. And then they have to sit there for the whole 4 hours. They're not allowed to shut the device off early and put their head down. No. You got to stay at it the whole 4 hours. I'd be screaming.
They can close the computer in my room. The CASP tests are coming up, right? Next month, right? And those are the big numbers. So we, at least in my classroom, we take lots of breaks, lots of exercise breaks, lots of, let's just put it down and look out the window at the clouds. And not a few weeks ago, but certainly a number of weeks ago, it hailed here in Glendale, and we just went outside and felt the hail and we were able to connect it to snowflakes and the atomic structure of water, which is what we were working on at the time.
That's awesome.
But they that at least with these tests, again, we have a really supportive administrator. And since they can on the CASP test, at least there is no time limit. We have 3 weeks to do the English, the math, and the science. So I never feel, I said, today, let's do 20 minutes of it, and then let's just put it down and do some more reviewing, do some reading, do some relaxing, and come back at it, because it's exactly what you were saying, Dr. Sanders. It's about feeling successful and making sure the students know that these tests themselves, whatever they're measuring, sometimes they do measure accurately and good things, and sometimes they don't.
Mm-hmm.
That the moral worth, I tell them, your moral worth is, whether you're a good person or bad person, has nothing to do with this particular test. It has a lot to do.
Or your intelligence, that test doesn't say that you're smart or dumb. It doesn't.
Exactly.
It doesn't determine that.
Yeah. So that's one solution with these. In private schools, obviously you have more options than you do in public schools, but I wish more public school teachers would push back against administrators who themselves are being driven, with incentives that are beyond certainly the teacher's control.
What would you say to parents who, when confronted with how far behind their children are, and again, this is a little more relevant for the kids who are middle school and above, because I think, in elementary school, they're still focused a little bit more on developing those foundational skills and abilities and so on. But once you get into middle school, early high school, you tell parents kids are far behind. There's a lot they haven't learned. And then you try to approach them about a solution that involves some, intensive remediation or just a complete change of scenery. You got to get out of there and do things completely differently so they can acquire the knowledge they missed. I've even recommended to somebody that their child go back and go through a math program where it almost starts at the beginning, but you can go through it very, very fast. It's just a matter of, let's make sure you got the addition facts down. Okay, got that. Let's make sure those fractions, the percentages, decimals, you got that nailed, because you're going to be nowhere in algebra and you can be nowhere in geometry. If that stuff is really fuzzy or scary to you, might as well go back in the summer or a couple months and just do it. And I've had some parents say to me, they're just going to hate life and it's going to be terrible. And you know what? They're almost graduated. They just got a few more years. They got A's. Isn't that what math? They'll graduate. They're not in danger of not graduating. Let me just get them out of school. And then when they're out of school, then they can deal with it later. And when I hear this, I'm just like, what would you say to that parent to encourage them to give their child the opportunity to close that gap, even if it means that the material they will be reading, learning seems a little babyish? I mean, that's the word that people have used. I'm not having my kid go back and do addition. And it's like, but they need it. They need it. I'm sorry to tell you this. Yes, they're 13 and 14 years old, but how are they going to function in life if they are terrified of fractions? They look at a fraction and go, that's not going to work. Yes, but they have to go all the way back. Yes, they do, but they'll get through it really fast. So I'm hitting a brick wall. What can we tell parents to help them understand that this is a good thing, that recognizing this gives you the opportunity to fix it and there is a solution?
Yeah, this is a very, very, very relevant question that I'm having to face right now with my 10th and 11th graders who are coming to me and they have great grades, and I see they're going to do terrible on SAT. And I realize that has implications for college affordability because because the parents are assuming they'll be able to, get a merit award or whatever. And I'm having to tell them the truth. And I have to say, I'm getting mixed results. Some go, oh yeah, what can I do? And I've created this SAT math curriculum, which really is, I'm telling them it's that. But Deb, it's just that. We're going back, actually doing one-step equations and multiplication with students who are in 11th grade. So, I'd say it's been mixed results. When I tell them it's going to, direct answer to your question, I tell them it's going to affect college affordability. You're going to pay thousands of dollars more for college if you don't fix this, and it wakes up a lot of them. And then the ones that doesn't, then I start to show them how they're going to need to approach the issue of career prep and approach the issue of college in general. It's going to be affected by that. And it has mixed results still even then, Deb.
Right.
But it does get a result. I do get engagement. I had to do it 8 times in the last 3 weeks. And I'm putting together that group now. So, yeah, that's a good question. I think related to money, maybe that's the way they'll get some parents to understand it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Doctor?
I often hear this thing, about algebra being pushed too early. This is a big thing now in the talking about it in the math community. And the idea that, well, some students aren't ready for algebra in 9th grade. So let them have it in 11th grade or whenever they're ready. Why are we pushing them? But to me, it doesn't get better. Like if you're not ready for it in 9th grade, you're not more ready in 11th. If anything, you're more past the point where you kind of don't want to go back at that point. So that seems to me kind of a futile answer that I'm hearing a lot. And I just somehow, though, when I say that doesn't work, people don't believe me. So I bang my head a little on that one.
And I'm hearing the opposite. I'm hearing if they go back, these kids who need to go back, they'll never be able to get to trig. They'll never be able to get to calculus because you're making them. And I'm like, but they won't be able to do trig and calculus. Like, I mean, if you keep going this way, what? And they seem to think that it's not even about understanding it. They have to have it on their transcript. If they don't go through all the math and have trig on the transcript, they're not going to get into college anyway. So what you want to do is going to hold them back and they won't be able to take trig. And that's terrible. You're going to wreck their college prospects. I'm like, college prospects? The kid can't multiply fractions. Like I'm boggled. It's like having it written on a piece of paper matters more.
Maybe there's a way to present an analogy with, say, you went to speak to a financial planner. Okay, and I understand, with apologies to Paulo Freire's banking model of education. Okay, but if you went to a financial planner and you had papers from your bank or somewhere that said you had, $20,000 in your account, but you got an auditor and they looked into it, and hey, you only have $3,000. So you've been planning for retirement with this money that doesn't exist, right? Which is actually maybe a problem in 5 to 10 years, if not next year or whatever.
Yeah.
But that's sort of, in a way, that may wake people up, because be like, if we're going to represent this knowledge as some quantity, the quantity is not there, so you can't grow the quantity over time to where you think it's going to be, because you're not getting an accurate reflection of reality. I don't know, maybe that's one way.
Well, the problem is parents absolutely believe that a college degree is still sort of a job ticket. Like, I got to get the kid into the college. The better the college on the piece of paper, that means the better the job. Like, people actually look at that and care. And then when they get the good job, all will be well. I did my job. And it's like, but what if they can't do the job? There's all the little steps of, hey, I made it to this place where, what am I going to do? Occupy space. And then I get to move to the next level of the game. This isn't a video game. This is life.
Well, I imagine there's also, it's relative, right? So there's pandemic learning loss, but all the other kids have lost learning too. So relatively, I'm not so bad, right? Because a lowering tide lowers all boats. So if you're
except for Michael's students, except then you have students like you tutor and Michael tutors, and even probably to a certain degree Deacon Wilson tutors, who are the standouts, the Asian kids, and the kids who are there for enrichment, and the kids who learning loss, learning schmoss. Their parents are like, school is closed. No, we are doing this. They still exist.
It's a fact
that
some cultures, some some cultures view education in a way that's way different
Oh
than
yeah.
we in America typically view education. And so COVID learning loss does not exist amongst some groups of students,
Right.
but we're so pampered and soft that we the grind that you see in a lot of foreign students, um, it's a cultural thing for them, and they're doing it. They're going out there. They're hitting it hard, and it shows in at the college level. It shows in who's teaching particular classes in college. Any of you, if you've seen an ologist in the last year, you know that it was probably not someone U.S. born.
That's true.
Because our kids our kids are lacking the knowledge, the social skills, the functional skills, the grit, the drive, the desire, the motivation to do the work, to get in those places, to get those jobs, and to be leaders in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if we think
And
about what exactly to your point, like what are they doing right? Is that motivation internal? Is it some sort of magic pixie dust that they have this great lust for achievement? I don't think so. I think it's external. It's external motivation in many ways, and that's not a bad thing. That gets a bad rap. I don't think it's a bad thing. Whatever gets you to the promised land.
but I think it's about what you value. And with some cultures, it's not the stuff, the games, the shoes, the brands. It's not that what they value. It is the success and being able to take care of their parents and their grandparents, and all the families live together, and the males take responsibility for making sure that the unmarried sisters and elderly aunts and mothers are all taken care of. That's not the way we do it here. Here, I want a bigger house. I want a bigger boat. And oh, wait, our neighbor's got a what? A what? Okay, well, then I have to get the newest one. And so we're so busy chasing stuff that education and then the illusion of education, we've bought into that.
Right.
No, my kid has good grades. My kid is on honor roll. Now, I've had teachers tell me, well, he's making straight A's about their own kid. And I'm like, wow.
You know better.
It's all it's like stop. It's all an illusion. But there are other cultures that value building wealth, sharing the wealth within the culture, they patronizing each other's businesses, helping each other getting businesses started, those types of things. To where, why is it that all of the professionals who come and make sure that our hearts are strong or our kidneys are strong or whatever is foreign born? Why is that? And it's not like, we don't have the resources, the academic resources, the schooling. They come here to get the prime schooling that our students can't qualify for. I need you all to kind of simmer on that one just for a little bit. Our kids can't qualify for it. Do you know how many universities recruit from overseas?
Oh yeah.
Because our kids.
Go ahead.
My dad was a first generation immigrant from Italy, and he would take my papers from high school, and I would get an A on those papers. He would say, "Give me the paper." And he would mark it up, and you say, "I give this paper a C. Go fix it." He did not. He knew then, and this was the 80s. I mean, he knew, or 70s. He knew that he didn't trust the education system, and that was maybe his own experience and his own mother telling him that when he was a kid. I don't think I'm going to do that with my kids. Maybe I should. But
yeah,
but
Paul,
the more.
Let me encourage you, man. Look
Yeah,
at their stuff.
Exactly right. I mean, I give that advice to everybody. I got to do it myself. So Yeah, but I think it is a mindset, and it's by the time they're in school, if the context isn't cooperating,
Mhm.
the school can, you're like rolling the ball uphill.
Right.
And it's just going to roll down on you again. And maybe you're right. Maybe we just need to stop the merry-go-round for, and reset, get everybody off,
Yeah.
So, I mean, I know it is controversial, but I really do think for some of these people who discover this, it would be better for their students to go back and, for example, Call It Courage, the book that Ray is reading with his fifth graders, correct? Is that what
Mhm.
you're reading in fifth grade?
That's
Okay.
one of them.
Right. But I know ninth graders that would have trouble with that book. So when I say to have trouble, meaning like they'd be able to do it. That would be reachable. That'd be within reach for them, but that would be the level that is within reach for them. You get what I'm saying? And I have no problem at all doing that because I truly believe that if you take that ninth grader and you have them, especially with a teacher like you, who's going to, make it fabulous, read something like Call It Courage, that they could very quickly go from Call It Courage to where they are theoretically supposed to be in very short order, probably within a year. And I mean, that's maybe ambitious, but I do think it's possible. And I say that because I look at when my kids learn to read and how quickly they progress from Dr. Seuss to Call It Courage. Right? And they were homeschooled at that early age. It was lightning. Now, granted, they're a little younger, brain's a little more elastic and so forth. But if they could do it that fast, like we're talking a month, imagine, right? Now, I do know that Michael's going to need to leave us soon. So, Michael, there was something that you wanted to bring up. I don't want to miss out on that.
Well, just really kind of solutions. And on my end, I guess I'll make a plug for Barry's book. I think we've all seen it.
Yay!
And
Go Barry.
It's just
yes, where's my copy?
It's a really good exposition of how at least I was taught, and I just sort of took it for granted. Well, this is how they teach, right? Because this is how when I was in school they taught. And
Michael, could you say something more about that book? I'm not aware of that book.
It's fantastic.
Math.
Yeah,
and it's basically two teachers, one who's in elementary school and one who's a middle school teacher, just describing their implementation of really what is the traditional, kind of gets a bad rap as it were. I mean, even the picture on the front, it shows all these kids sitting in rows, wearing suits. And it's really just the idea that there is direct instruction and the whole class is learning together. And yeah, there are going to be people who get it faster than others. But the idea is you want to keep everybody in the same, at least getting the same exposure so that you know what they're learning and what they're not. Otherwise, you have the new way with these complex instruction. I mentioned this on the last meeting, last week on our call, how there's low floor, high ceiling, and you don't really know where anyone is at. You just give them stuff and engage them and think, well, everyone's going to advance, whatever pace it is, and they're engaged, and that's all it takes. But in the end, it really doesn't guarantee they learn anything other than just go through the steps. And those steps aren't designed to come out the other side having built knowledge. So the logical progression of topics is a big part of it. And in fact, that's what I drew from this book. There's a table in one of the early chapters that kind of describes kind of what traditionally before Common Core was anticipated to be learned every step of the way in every grade. Right. When you first learn to add, when you first learn to multiply, when you learn your multiplication tables. And nowadays this has all been pushed to later grades. They don't even really show multiplication until second and third grade. Like they don't even mention it until second grade. And they don't even get into practicing how to do multiplication seriously until third grade. And many other things, decimals, long division. They've put long division off to sixth grade, and they don't even start it until sixth grade. Whereas traditionally it was taught as early as third and introduced and developed third, fourth, and fifth. Usually fourth grade is when you learn how to divide by a one-digit divisor, and then fifth would be two-digit, and by six you just knew it cold. they're not even starting it until 6. What they're doing is having people do grouping, draw pictures and area models and grouping and do division that way until 6th grade. Ratio tables, though, that's another thing. In 5th grade, they introduced them to that, the Common Core way. So this is one solution I've found that I'm actually following.
I think parents should buy that book. I wrote a review of it on my Substack, and I said, oddly enough, I never thought I'd recommend a math book to the average parent, but I really think it's important because if nothing else, you will realize. I realized what I missed. And we were doing long division in 4th grade, and I still feel ripped off because of the way I was taught. The way that Barry describes the teaching, the progression, I can see the fun in it, what John talked about earlier, that how much fun it would have been to know those things, as well as he explains, and he's explaining how to teach it and how it works. And like, oh my God, why didn't they do this for us? And I think if you got kids who are still school age, you have an opportunity to give them something we didn't get. And math is not supposed to be this big scary thing for most people. Yes, there are people who do really well at math, like who are, up here with their math ability. But this notion that, I'm bad at math, I'm just bad at math, and lots of people are just bad at math. That's not true. That's not supposed to be true. And at some point we accepted that. And Barry's book, I think, does a great job of refuting that.
Yeah.
And teachers aren't really going to buy this. Some teachers will, but the average teacher will think this is really bad and not want to do it, and even criticize it and say that these people don't know what they're talking about.
Michael, who's the author?
So here, Barry Gorelick and J.R. Wilson.
Okay.
And it's on Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
And but I think so. It's for parents to do the research on this and realize what's going on, because from what I've seen, the educational research establishment is gaslighting everybody. I mean, for lack of a better way of describing it.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Which is why the subtitle is effective strategy that teachers feel guilty using.
Yeah.
Right. Because I was told this is terrible. I should never do this. I should teach constructivism and problem-based learning and inquiry and all these wonderful things, which sound great. Group work, and they grade each other and everything. But I was like, after 3 years of tearing my hair out and the kids tearing their hair out, I just started teaching what worked for me when I was, and what I thought would work. And it worked a lot better. So it was more in line with this book.
Exactly.
Yeah. As you mentioned, the Barbara Oakley, who I believe has recommended this book, if not even, no, she didn't write the foreword, but she has definitely recommended this book. Okay, well, thank you, everybody. I'm going to have to run.
Thank you for coming. Thank you so much. And hopefully you'll join us again in the future.
Oh, absolutely. You can count on it.
Thank you, Michael.
Bye, Mike.
Bye. And I am bringing in now our dissident teacher has joined us, our friend from California. Welcome back. Welcome back. She's not in a hockey rink tonight.
Hi.
Hello.
No,
Hey.
I'm drinking a glass of wine. It's fantastic. And pushing my daughter on the swing. That's the creaking you'll hear.
Another California
I missed
teacher.
so much. I don't.
It's okay.
I know you don't want to recap. I heard a bunch of things. I was listening while I was cooking dinner. I think the big thing, you guys, I heard you guys talking about reading, and that's sort of my jam, in terms of like upper school or high school level. And I think the big thing, are we doing solutions? Are we not?
We're doing solutions, but I want to hear what you had to say to add to that.
Are we solutions or not?
We're doing solutions also, but if you have something to say about the reading, I want to hear it because it's part and parcel of the solution.
Okay, hang on. Okay.
She's not showing her face.
Sorry, I think I just lost I was too far away from my Wi-Fi.
She's a California teacher and needs to be anonymous at the moment.
Yeah, my husband is very particular about this. He knows my colleagues too well. I think that for reading, I think just going back to the reading thing you guys were talking about earlier, I was listening while I was cooking. I think parents really need to be aware of, they don't know what reading is anymore. I think They look at grades, and if there's one thing I really would hope that parents can take away from this conversation is that grades do not indicate anything anymore. Except for maybe compliance. And I don't know if you guys talked about that
And
already,
not even that.
but this idea, and even exactly. At this point, even that's
Yeah.
a question because behavior standards have fallen through the floor in terms of like discipline and classroom management. But I think parents understanding the grade means almost nothing. It mostly just means your kid is
Nothing.
nice. And it certainly doesn't mean they can do math or they understand history or they can read a novel. It certainly doesn't mean any of that. And so what you have to do is really have these conversations with your kids about what they are learning and just ask them questions. Oh, can you tell me more about that? What do you know? What did your teacher say about it? Or what do you think about this? And then if they keep saying to you, I don't know, please trust your children when they say, I don't know. That doesn't mean they're stupid. It means they literally don't know. And
They don't know.
yeah, it's not I don't know because I wasn't paying attention, although that is a possibility. But it really means, but they're not lying to you. They're not pretending not to know. They don't know. And so if you're asking like basic questions about American history or something that you feel comfortable talking about, something you feel like you know pretty well, and they say, I don't know, Mom, I don't know, the teacher hasn't talked about that. And then you should ask, the next question should be, well, have you read anything about it in your textbook? And the answer is going to be no, because teachers don't require reading in textbooks anymore. And then you'll say, well, have you seen any good YouTube videos about it? And they'll say, there's one on my Google Classroom, but I haven't watched it. You're going to get the same kind of answers. And so when you start hearing those answers, I don't know what to tell. I mean, my instinct as a mom is to say, pull them the hell out of school and stop wasting their damn time. But if you can't do that, then you got to start thinking about how can I supplement my kid's education so that he has a foundation to build on when he's, a little bit older, whether we're talking about 7th grade or 12th or 10th grade, it doesn't really matter. It's just that they honestly don't know anything. And that's a shame because they've been spending 7 to 8 hours a day in schools for, my kids, we're talking about, I don't know how long, like 9, 10, 11 years. I don't even know how to speak to that except to be just horrified at the absolute enormous waste of it. But one thing that you can do, like I think Deb was talking about reading and having to tell parents your kids can't read. So I'm a huge John Taylor Gatto fan. I've read all of his stuff, and he just basically rips the Band-Aid off of everything you thought you were doing in school as a teacher and tells you that's not what you're doing at all. And it's very depressing. So I don't recommend it if you're already struggling. But if you're in a healthy psychological place, I do recommend reading his essays at least, if not his entire books. But one of the tests all parents can do, and this is a brilliant test, hopefully they haven't seen the movie, and I'm not sure if the movie's any good, honestly, but the new All Quiet on the Western Front, right? They only need to read the first 2 pages. It's like it's not even the first 2 pages, it's like a page and a half. And all you have to do is ask them. If you want to know if they can read, you ask them, why did the boys get double rations? Right? Why did the guys get double rations that day? It's one question. And if your kid's like in the 9th, 10th, 11th, or 12th grade, especially in the 11th or 12th grade, I would expect them to be able to answer this question, no sweat. Like that would be my expectation as an English teacher / history teacher. If they can't answer it, they're letting you know they can't read. And like Deb said, it's not reading like decoding the words on the page. It's when I get to the end of the page, do I know what was on the page? Do I understand the words, what they mean together, why the paragraphs are where they are? Why the exclamation, why the grammar, why the mechanics and the punctuation are put in the way they are. Reading is like this huge skill set. And I think more parents need to understand that their kids actually don't know how to read. We're mostly, I would say arguably, most of the schools I've taught at, most of the kids are functionally illiterate at a high level.
Facts.
Yeah.
Facts.
Yeah, well, I didn't catch your name there, but I'll say the dissident actually has a good point. What's happening in English class, I make jokes of this all the time with my students, and they laugh, they know I'm right. English class has devolved to Doctor and others here. If I'm a tree, what would I be?
If I'm a tree.
And now with all these, shout out to Ray Raymond there, with all these hidden agenda teaching We're more interested, do they get the theme and the, and the SJ angle of it, and not. That's why I like to question. I suspect, I know it, and the SAT behind me wants to know, what did it say? They don't care about all that. In fact, if you come approaching emotionally, you get it wrong. They have answers that have the emotional answer.
Mhm.
And and it's really kind of a scary thing when you think about that. Well, you're right. What does it say? 80% of the SAT reading questions are, what does it say? And
What does it say?
they see
Not what does it mean? It's just like, let's see what color was George Washington's white horse.
It's also what attitude is the author conveying? Because that's saying, what does it say? That's the way they think. But in school, attitude is tone. How do you feel? There's no wrong answer. So there's actually a lot of interesting truth to what she's saying there.
Can I piggyback on that too? I actually talked to Mr. Rossi earlier today. But like we were talking about what I think is what's happening with our society in general is that we're like unmoored. There's no anchorage anywhere. And I think parents need to recognize that teachers are just as unmoored as their students. They don't know anything.
Right.
Most
Absolutely.
of the young teachers, like in their mid-20s,
Right.
early mid-20s, even the early 30s, they all got socially promoted. I hate to be, well, I don't hate it. I take a little bit of gleeful, disgusted joy at this. But most teachers are like the bottom of their class in terms of GPA and SAT scores. They're not bright.
I see why you're not.
I know I'm gonna get. This is why my husband won't let me be public, because I say crap like this. Anyway, so like they're just not that bright, and I don't mean that to mean. I mean they're usually kind people. They're caring people. They have their hearts in the right place. But all they know is the society that they're basically marinated in. And when you work in a public school, it is non-stop propaganda. It is justice and emotions and how do the kids feel and how can we make them feel better? And it's just not, it never stops. And so
Belonging.
what do you do? Exactly. Do you fit in? Are you happy? Are you in a place where you're ready to learn? And this
No
is like
pressure, but are you happy?
Well-being.
Are you happy? Are you happy? Are you happy?
Oh yeah, exactly. And how about this one? Have your parents been fighting lately? What's going on at home? Right?
Oh my goodness! Don't get me started.
I know.
Ray, we gotta talk.
I know. Yeah. This stuff is pervasive. It's disgusting. It's intrusive. And so so what I'm saying is the teachers don't know enough to work outside of it. They don't know how to really wrestle with a curriculum, with difficult language, with difficult literature, with history that has multiple perspectives that you're looking at it. How do I find the truth? Or do I just go to the textbook? And that's the other thing I wanted to bring up is the other thing that I would hope that you guys would have some, I mean, not you guys so much, but parents in general. A lot of your teachers are very misguided. And they're also in a job that's basically now impossible and horrifying every day. Like we see violence on campus. We hear about girls being sexually abused. We hear about girls sexually harassing each other. We hear about teachers getting, and so all we're trying to do, honestly, a lot of people are just trying to keep their freaking heads, below the wall and not get shot at. And so if that's all you're trying to do, the idea of like wrestling with John Dos Passos' take on why we study history is so beyond your ability at any given time. Right? Especially given like, I have a 45-minute prep period to deal with this. That's not going to happen. And they didn't get it in their undergrad, and they sure as hell didn't get into ed school. So you're dealing with people who are doing, like they're literally in survival mode. And if you're in high school, I would say a significant number of teachers are fearful of their students. And I don't think they should be. I think if they had better classroom management, they wouldn't be. But we're at a stage in society where kids are getting away with really getting in their teachers' faces. And most teachers are women. And most teachers are soft. They're just soft. That's just how they are. And there's nothing wrong with being a soft maternal figure unless you have a system that rewards kids for being belligerent, which it does. So,
but then at the same time, dissident. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
At the same time, dissident, if you are the one that'll turn around and get crunk with them, that's a problem as well. So, I mean, it's like when you turn around and get crunk with a student, They
you're
go
a
home and whine to their
supremacist, you're a
parents,
racist, you're culturally
and
insensitive.
then you're going to
you're
get called into the
microaggressive.
office because you got crunk with a student. So literally, teachers cannot win.
I've never heard that word.
Yeah.
Dr.
But I
Buck,
also,
Crunk?
say that.
Oh, get
Yeah,
crunk.
they
Yeah,
haven't
get
heard
crunk.
that word, doctor.
I don't need to look it up.
Doctor, translate
You
that.
can tell what it means, just how it
Come on, doctor,
sounds.
I'm gonna hear what you say.
Yeah, yeah, get crunk.
you guys
with
need
them.
you guys need to
I'm
work.
going to use that
I swear.
now.
Oh, no, don't do it. You'll
Now
lose
you're
all your
getting her in
street cred.
trouble
Don't
now.
do it.
Now you're getting her in trouble now.
Your students
No,
will
but-
look at you and go, cringe.
Yes,
So
they will.
cringe.
They will. They will. You got to be
Bruh.
careful with that. You have to have enormous
Bruh.
street cred before you can throw something like that down. Like enormous street cred. It's really hard to get. I was gonna say, well, shoot, what was I say? Like, I think one of the things, I just think that what we have to recognize is understand that teachers are victims of the system too. And they've been victimized since they were in first and second grade. And a lot of teachers were very good, quote unquote, good little students. And so they're very comfortable in a school setting and they think they understand the expectations. Yeah, they think they understand the expectations and they think they know how it's going to go because they're only measuring by their experience. And then they get dropped into a pool of sharks. And I don't mean that pejoratively at my students. Like, I loved my students and I worked in some real rough schools for the first 13 years of my career. So like, I loved those kids, but I could tell that they would eat me alive if I was going to give them any quarter. And so you have to be so damn tough. And most people just aren't ready for that. And the system will allow you to just sit back and go, okay, guys, open your laptops and your assignments on Google Classroom and turn it in whenever you're ready. And it's okay if it's late. And oh, if you copy, I'm probably not going to look too closely at it. So don't worry too much about it. I mean, that's where we are. And so parents, like, you really have to be,
Facts.
yes, you can be combative with teachers. You can be combative with the teachers and they deserve it. I'm not going to lie. I think a lot of teachers deserve a lot more pain than they've experienced. But at the end of the day, this is about your kid. And your kid gets one damn shot at this.
Not me.
Yeah.
Don't do it.
Sorry, Ray.
I do want to ask before I forget, because it was really early on in the broadcast and I was waiting for this to kind of come up. And now that we're talking about teachers and we're talking about what parents could do and so forth, there's been discussion about not teachers. In other words, people who are not trained to be teachers going into teaching, that might be a solution. I mean, in the sense that, we'd have people who were likely more expert at their fields, who might be more passionate about their subjects and such like that. But there are people in the teacher education world and in the universities are like, oh no, we can't have that. And of course the unions aren't too keen on it. What do you think though, just as an idea about recruiting non-teachers into teaching from a subject matter expertise perspective? So maybe not elementary necessarily. Oh, maybe, I don't know, but certainly at the higher, middle and high school, math teachers, science teachers, etc., who have been out in the world and living in context and so forth. What do you think about that?
Well, I believe that Math That Works. I have a charter school that calls me in to teach certain math topics as a neighborhood volunteer, and it's very rewarding because they get a fresh way at my examples. My little life examples are going to be a lot different, and the teachers love to have me come. Now I have some teachers who don't want me, never call me in. Certain year they look at me, oh, you're a threat, but I really do think that is a solution for math. I can't speak for other subjects, but I think definitely for some of these math courses like calculus, pre-calc, algebra 2, to have me come with a fresh way of showing them, like pictorially, about quadratics first. There's 3 pictures I can draw and they know quadratics. Wow, we never saw it that way. It's because I've learned in my experiences it's best to do it pictorially, for example. That's just an example. So I think you may have something. The charter schools already do it when they're not restricted and have to have a future.
I think too, having not teachers teaching, but having a wider variety of educators or people who come into the classroom much more often to lecture or guest lecture. And I say that because my eldest daughter invited me one time to her freshman history class when she was in high school here, public high school.
Mhm.
And I said, why are you what, they want me to come? What? I'm just, no, Mom, you lived overseas for a while and you traveled and you learned another language and you immersed yourself in this other culture and you did it because you were so interested in this particular part of history. And so I told my teacher, all about this, and you visited East Bloc countries when there was still the Berlin Wall. This kid, like I'm some kind of ancient artifact. And so the teacher said, yeah, we'd love to have you come and speak to the students. I said, how long should I prepare to speak? He said, oh, you can have the whole period, 90-minute period. I said, seriously? So I prepped. I brought in some interesting stuff. I did a thing with I threw some quotes out at them. They were learning about the period of Weimar, right between the wars, Weimar Republic, and this sort. So I wanted to talk about sort of like how different philosophies shape the way leaders lead, and people, whole societies shift and so forth. I knew they weren't getting that. So I threw a couple quotes at them about individuals, the problem with individuals, And I'm reading these quotes and I said, who do you think said that? They're like, I don't know, like maybe like George Washington, they're throwing out names. I said, would it surprise you to learn that was Adolf Hitler? So like reading this about the family and this and that. And then I started going into the whole, and I just told them stories. I told them the stories of things I had seen. I read them a couple passages. I talked to them about places I'd been, concentration camps, etc. The kids were like this. Absolutely. Even my daughter said, she said, I've never, ever seen them that quiet. I've never seen them listen. And this is not a testament to me personally or my abilities. I'm just saying other people could do it too. I think if you have an interesting story to tell, interesting life experiences, you've seen things, you've done things, you've been in the world, not just on the world, entering a classroom can produce magic if you want to be there. In other words, if you care about the kids that you're speaking to and you want to share this experience with them. And I really think one solution could be to kind of put some spark back into this whole thing called education, is bring some people into the classroom to talk about life, life and living and experiencing, not this maudlin, like my life is so hard and I suffer and all these things. Not that. And also not the like, look at my glitter and my rainbow sparkles. Not that either. I mean, real life.
Well, yeah, I mean, I was a career changer and I didn't start teaching until I was in my 40s, and it helped me a great deal. I mean, I think it gives you great perspective. I wouldn't obviously don't hire or qualify people just based on their expertise. They have to be really devoted to doing it, and then give them like a few years to get their sea legs or whatever. But I think it's a great idea. And I think, within having kids see you as not just, as someone that's had a life and that has had experiences and that has done many different types of jobs and been many places and traveled, like there's a way, where you keep boundaries, but you can actually draw on that in a certain way. So yeah, I think it'd be great.
Hey, Paul, I agree. Hey, Paul, I would love to have had my student in a class with a teacher like you, because you bring your life stuff in there and mix it in there. I bet it's really interesting. There's that interesting thing again.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
I mean, there's certain things like if I was going to say, well, okay, the moon is 239,000 miles away, right? Okay, like why do we need to know this? What is it? Well, okay, well, if you had to drive there, how long would it take you? Just take a guess. And people give you all kinds of different things. They'd be like, well, I mean, how long does it take to drive across the country? Well, how far is that? And then divide that. And you can kind of get a sense of like, you would have to drive every day, 8 hours a day at 60 miles an hour for a year and a half. That would be, imagine that there's like gas stations along the way, and then you have motels, and you could, that's like a year and a half to drive. Things like that. Like if you need to have students that understand driving, maybe riding the bus, I don't know, whatever it takes is like, but to come up with ways of making things real that are down to earth, and not just sort of dry things in a dry facts is helpful.
exactly.
Right.
Yeah. I thought it was interesting the comment you made, Paul, about not becoming a teacher until you were 40, because and our dean too. Same with me. I didn't become a teacher till I was approximately 40, so that's why I'm in retirement mode. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to say goodbye to everyone, but I did want to say thank you to everyone. It was wonderful to hear your thoughts and learn from you. And God bless everyone. And wish me well tomorrow at the. We're having a little protest down at the school board for having the girls and the boys.
Yeah,
I
need to
do
be
wish
what you're
you
doing,
the
man.
best with that, because that's insane.
Good
I mean,
luck.
if a grown man wanted to go in the girls' locker room and look at a 12-year-old naked girl, we would put him in prison. But now we're saying, hey, coach, you've got to have the 12-year-old naked girl in your locker
Yeah,
room.
and
This is insane.
he's been told that he's supposed to say, "This is not a girl. This is not a girl. This is not a girl." And I'm
2
thinking,
+ 2 = 5. 2 + 2 = 5. 2 + 2 = 5.
you are going to be arrested for, a crime. But anyway, so wish me luck tomorrow. We'll see how it goes. I don't think they'll really care, but it's really about educating the parents, not the school board. They're just politicians. So,
That's right.
but I loved hearing everybody, and thank you so much for sharing
Thanks
your
for coming, Ray.
views and thoughts. And thank you for your inspiration, John and Paul and Teresa. And the dissident teacher who just came in, but it's important. It's
She's
important
awesome. Go follow her.
to take spiritual inspiration. It helps. Thank you very much.
I'll be in
Thank
touch.
you, Ray.
Okay. Good
Bye.
night. Thank you.
Hi, Mr.
Good
Raymond.
night.
Okay, I
So-
love how positive he was, but I'm going to tell you guys honestly, I don't think that you can bring, I don't like, I mean, I know that bringing people into the classroom is great from outside, but I've seen this happen multiple times, in the last, I don't know, probably 5 or 6 years of my career. Well, pros
That was
come
me
in.
saying it, by the way. That was me.
Oh, was that you? Okay, well,
That was
he
me.
was like, it's inspiring. And I'm like, I don't think you recognize how much self-respect these people have and how much they will not put up with. So like real content experts who have worked in their fields, they take one look at this mess that administration and state regulations have wrought, and they're like, peace out. I could have done some good with these kids. I could have helped, but this is not a system that is going to allow me to do my thing well. Like it'll let you come in for a day. It'll let you come in for a day and do a presentation and everyone's super happy. But if you try to take someone who's a pro and they come in because they expect a certain level to have a real authority. And the problem is the systems completely undermine the authority of actual instructors.
Yes.
So even if you can be the greatest, like I've worked with some brilliant engineers, I work with a brilliant artist right now, and they're just disgusted with the systemic rot that allows children to basically be they're like little dictators, they're little emperors in the classroom, and they can just do what they want. And I love kids, and I just think that but at the end of the day, you do need those experts and people to teach, but I think you need them in a environment where the kids are choosing to go to them rather than being forced to take the class. So I really I don't know if you guys parents have looked into it. I really hope you should maybe see if you can look into it. Like what's popping up a lot now that I love is this idea of the learning center, which is, it's not a micro school. It's like a place where you go and there's people there that sort of mentor you through the process. And it might be a little hippy dippy for a lot of people, but I feel like there's ways to spin this off into functional environments where the kids are challenged, and they're being challenged by more of a mentor / tutor in the old English tutor style, rather than the micro school where, we're not that anything's wrong with micro schools, because I love that model too, where they're working on the computers and they're going at their own pace and there's only 10 kids in the room. That's amazing too. But I just think that parents need to recognize that
the computer.
Yeah, it's the authoritarian, you will do this, that hurts, that undermines education, I think. And and that's after 20 years of teaching, and I see it in my students. If they have a choice, they do so much better. And when they feel like they have no power, that's when they dip, right? To go crunk, like Miss Sanders said, right? Like they dip. They're like, peace, I'm done with you.
Well, you just explained why I'm not a teacher. I've been asked so many times, why are you not teaching? Why are you not teaching? You love kids and you love education. I'm like, well, she just captured it perfectly because I have too much self-respect. I go into that environment. I did teach for a year as a volunteer in a local charter school. And it was one class I taught debate. And I loved the kids. I loved doing it, but I could never have done that full time. And I wouldn't have done it for pay because then I would have had to answer to all that nonsense. And because I was a volunteer at any moment in time, I could have said, I'm out. So I did it that way, but there's no way I could put up with that. As a parent trying to interact, as was my daughter's school, trying to interact with the administration and so forth. I just felt like I might as well beat my head against a brick wall till I'm bloody. And you're right that when people, even if you were in teaching, if you have that level of self-respect, but also, appreciation for quality and all of that and work ethic, you're not going to last long. You're going to wash out of that environment. You will not tolerate. That's why Dr. Sanders is not there anymore. You just say, I'm done. I can't do this. I cannot lower my own personal standards to do this every day. And I agree with you. That's why we can't replace teachers with experts. I was just thinking more in terms of kids, and maybe you're right. Maybe it can't be in that environment because it wouldn't work. But the learning center or some other way, kids do, even these kids, not all, but a sizable percentage, I think, if given the opportunity, given the exposure to people who've lived life and done some things with that knowledge the kids can't quite understand why it's relevant, who cares, whatever. Okay. That they get a little taste of that and like, wait a minute, that's actually kind of interesting. So you mean like you put guys on, out in space, you send satellites up and you build bridges or you operate on brains? Like you go and cut people's heads open and you operate on brain. I mean, these kinds of things, I actually do think kids, especially like late elementary school, middle school age group where going to school is a total waste of time anyway. I think it would be really cool for them to spend most of their time in those years getting exposure to the things people do, like the Richard Scarry book, but in real life.
Yeah, hey, I really appreciated her comments. You'll notice that she kind of made me smile, but you notice I said it's a charter school that calls me. Anyway, I thought I would also mention to go right behind I agree with you that bringing here and there a targeted guest speaker and helps. I started with the school that I go to now as a career day speaker, and then they called me back and said, hey, there's some kids that will learn how to be an engineer. That they want to hear the ins and outs. Right. Could you come to my math class and cover that with those students?
Right.
So there's something to be said for asking. Then I wanted to say to this teacher, if you listen to her real carefully, hey, I have to read her Substack, but I think she's got a heart for the kids. What do y'all say?
Oh my God, I love
those
kids.
I
love them.
Oh,
you have no idea. I'm so angry. Like I laugh a lot because I have to laugh or I'm gonna lose my damn mind.
Right.
Like I listen to you guys talk and I have this idea of how beautiful it could be for these kids. And instead we waste their time. It never stops. It's so depressing when I think, like, I would talk to my seniors and I'd be like, I would just look at them and it'd be random. I'd be in the middle of a lecture and I'd just stop and I'd go, I'm so sorry, you guys. We've wasted so much of your time. And they would just laugh because they knew where I was coming from. But
this is a common thread right here around in this group right here is that we have people with extremely high standards for academic excellence, all of us sitting here. At the same time, I truly believe that each and every one of us has taken a stand out of real love, the real kind of love for our students. Think about Paul Rossi. What did you do? You took it on the chin, got lost your job, got all kinds of negative attention because you refused to stand by and watch your students be gratuitously discriminated against based on race and their counterparts who are not white be misled and abused by being taught that they're victims. You refused to do it. You expose the headmaster, that you're a classic whistleblower, and that takes an enormous amount of courage to put your face, your name behind that and say, I can't and I will not do this. And that comes from a place of love for those kids. And then Dr. Sanders, the same thing. I'm leaving a career. I've built a career in teaching. I'm walking away from all of that. And, you know, probably pension and everything, because I cannot stomach it anymore watching kids be left behind and treated as future criminal. Like, oh, your job is to go to jail someday. Your job is to just be a throwaway human. And you just couldn't do it and said, if I have to take it for them, I'm doing it. Right. And then you, John, said, you're an engineer. You're doing other things. Whatever. You're like, I cannot sit by and watch these kids not succeed. Hey, church, we got to do something. We got to be a church and actually, you know, teach and spread knowledge for our kids and the broader community and so forth. And of course, same dissident teacher says, I got to go out and tell my story. And I've got to, and you left your school, right? You left one school, tried to go to another school, but you kept, you know, speaking out and speaking out.
I left and like it's, and I listen to your stories and I'm like, I write a blog. That's all I do.
It's great. It's a good blog.
But you're very forthright.
Really good.
You're very forthright. Think of how many people out there are just kind of going 10 more years to retirement, 5 more years to retirement. You know, like, I just got to show up and punch the clock. Here, we'll go on YouTube, go on your Chromebook, etc. And yet in their private moments, they'll sit there and go, these kids aren't learning anything. And I don't, you know, what am I going to do? It's not my fault, blah, blah, blah. It takes courage. And so what I want to ask you is kind of like our wrap up question, because it's something I want parents to be inspired to do. You know, we've been teachers, but parents, you're your child's first and most important teacher. And I want to inspire them to have that same moral courage to stick up for their individuals. We're not asking you to stick up for all the kids. I mean, leave that job to others, but your kid, your one kid, if you see that they are not learning and they don't know, as we've all described what knowing it is, and they're not, what would you want to say, or what did it for you that made you finally say, like, it would be worse for me not to open my mouth and say something? What can you tell them? Because that's part of the solution. Moral courage is the solution.
Well, I'll jump in there first. The day I realized I had to leave aerospace and do it was when I saw I was just sitting over there in aerospace cheating the government anyway. But that's not the whole story. Paul, I'd love to tell you that story one day. But I realized that students in the inner city weren't getting what other students were getting, and I realized it was going to be on people in the community. And a lot of engineers thought I was stupid and crazy. That's okay. I ran into some of them the other day. So I think it does take courage. It also takes courage to go to this next level, Deb, and I think you know where I'm going, where we actually have to now go to these public school districts and challenge them. We have to challenge the teachers' unions and challenge these people and these school boards and get involved in our local stuff and make these schools a better place for the students that are left behind. And yeah, I think that maybe we're saying us people like the four of us and secretly the dissident teacher too, probably are where our successful students are going in life are going to come from. That motivates me as well to have the courage.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, that's really great. I mean, I think that for me it was courage is just, for me, it's just fear of a different outcome, right? So you're just afraid of two things, right? What's the worst thing what's the thing you really want to act on?
I like that.
So I you know, it was, I was seeing the consequences for a while, and I thought part of it was just fear that I was going to let this slide and I was going to be 10 years older in the same place and, you know, let it go. So it was selfish in that way, but it was also seeing the consequences in the well-being, the real well-being of the kids, because there were kids that were coming into our school, you know, healthier and happier than when they left because of what they were being, the nonsense that were being inculcated with. And I just, that was it for me. So, and I knew I could do other things because I was a career changer. So I can code, you know, I wasn't going to starve. So I felt I was in a position where I could do it. And yeah, that was it. So onward, and there's more work. There's tremendous amounts of work to be done. And that's why we're doing this teaching alliance, Terra Firma. And if you're a teacher out there, please look us up, join us.
Whoa. Can a non-teacher join? I will talk about that later. Go ahead.
Yeah.
So I guess, you know, the way I look at things in my life, I don't have to answer to the school board. I have to answer to God for every child that crosses my path. And I need to be able to say, yes, I did the best that I could with this kid. I didn't cut corners with anybody's kid. I didn't short anybody's kid. I did the best that I could. Perfect teacher? No. But when, from day one, I'm looking at when that child is 18, is that child going to be able to survive in this world? And I was a behavior teacher. That was my focus. I caught so much heck because I would always rally for the kids. But in the end, when I tell you I love the kids, I love the kids. Deb, you had mentioned it. I got out because I can't be part of the foolishness. I can't. But I know kids can grow. I know kids can learn. And I know if we teach them the way that they need to be taught, all kids can achieve when their social and academic needs are met. And I have demonstrated that with Safari Small Schools. I've demonstrated it over and over and over. So I don't make $67,000 a year anymore. But the 5 kids that I had, I can teach them to read.
Yeah.
And I can work with their families. And so.
And what is it they say in the Bible? If you save one life, what do? You save the world entire.
Yes.
So what I have done unto the least of them, I have done unto the Father. Yeah. I am okay with not having no, I'm not okay with not having the money. That's a lie. I want the money. I can't even lie like that. I want the money. I had a very comfortable life. I still have a comfortable life, but I sleep at night knowing that the kids I work with, the kids I tutor, I go back into the schools as a sub while I don't have students. And so I get to have my cake and eat it too. I don't have to deal with any of the foolishness.
That's key.
And I have something that I can give them. I'm praying that families wake up. I'm praying that parents wake up. I'm praying that they do. Just
same.
Mm-hmm.
They're doing it one at a time. They're doing it.
Yeah.
It's slow though.
And so, and
slow.
I think our jobs are to provide information, to when parents have questions, we answer them. We tell them the truth. And it's never too late to turn a ship that's headed in the wrong direction around. And so, what do you mean? He can't read. You know what? The reality is that he can't read. And he's going to need to know how to read, or she's going to need to know how to read to be successful in life.
Right.
So let's work together.
Don't shoot the messenger either.
Yeah.
Sometimes if a teacher tells you that, listen.
Yeah. And the teachers are not going to tell you that.
I mean us. If we're saying it, like, don't cherry pick which teacher you're going to listen to and have it be only the one that gives you the happy news.
Yeah. And so there's 70% of parents out there have got bad news. 70%.
That's what you got to look at. Yeah.
70% have got bad news. And so mass incarceration is a thing.
Yep.
And those kids are being prepared to keep that prison economy going. Those kids are a unit of trade. That's it. And no one can tell me it's not intentional. Nobody can tell me that.
I agree. When people start talking to me about systemic racism, I sit there and I'm like, yeah, you're just pointing in the wrong direct. Like you're right, but for the wrong reasons. Like
Yeah.
it's there, but you're looking in the wrong systems in the wrong places, and that, you know, like you got it figured out all wrong. And what's worse, you're doubling down. We saw this week in Chicago. They elected a new mayor, right? Did you see that? Did you see that guy?
Yeah.
I
Oh yeah.
didn't.
Oh, yeah, they elected a new mayor, and his solution to their woes is that we're going to get rid of all grades.
Yeah, he wants to give it
There's
a grade level.
we're no Fs, nobody fails.
Well, grades in school, but also he wants to combine things too. But yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, he's got all kinds of crazy ideas about how that, you know, we're going to help kids succeed by just not failing them.
So then so the leaders that were the leaders in America that we're supposed to be training now, where's America headed? I mean, we got to look at that. Where's America headed? Not a good place. We are headed to find a fiduciary occupation is what I'm social occupation. It may not be physical occupation, but I'm telling you, we will be beholden to a foreign entity because we are not in a position to stand. We're just not. And so, you know, I said it the last time, Deb, that we all came together. It's that, what does it say when you have a K-12 system that won't teach kids to read? But when you send them to the penitentiary, contractors make millions of dollars teaching inmates how to read.
A lot of them learn there too, but that's you're right.
Just so, hey.
Yep.
So my job is to teach one, reach one. Any parent that has information, they know they can hit me up on Twitter, they can email me, and if I can answer a question for them, I will. I just do. And
Right.
and parents from all over the United States reach out. Can you help me with this? Can you help me with that? If I can answer it, I do.
Exactly. Well, I want to make sure everybody knows where to find all of you. So I posted already. I've got the Terra Firma Alliance is pinned in the comments. You can find Dr. Teresa Sanders at Safari Small Schools online, right? That they just can Google Safari Small Schools. And you're also on Twitter at Dr. Teresa
and
Sanders.
Facebook and Instagram.
Okay, so follow there. And Deacon John Wilson has a YouTube page, and you talk there about SAT prep and school, and every so often you get like a little, I won't say political, but philosophical, political, whatever, but not very often. It's usually educational. So please go follow his YouTube channel. And it's under West Angeles.
Los Angeles. Yeah.
Right.
And they
Okay.
reach
So
at www.westa-eep.org.
okay.
Just
West A
-eep.org.
.org.
They'll be
Okay.
led to all
I
my-
visited West Angeles years and years ago.
Oh yeah.
And Dissident Teacher can be found on Substack at educatedandfree.substack.com, also on Twitter at Dissident Teacher. And so please do follow along, because they all share valuable content frequently, just from the goodness of their hearts. So you're getting pearls here. And as I said, there are shows right here on this channel where I have interviewed Dr. Teresa Sanders, Deacon John Wilson, and Paul Rossi at length. So you can go search up those shows and watch them talk about all kinds of topics. They are fascinating people. I am very privileged to know each and every one of you. And I thank you from the bottom of my heart for being here for all of us, parents and people who care about the reason we learn. The reasons, plural, that
Deb,
we learn.
don't hate me. Can I just jump in really quick? I'm so sorry.
No, I don't hate you. I love you.
And
No,
I'm ruining
speak.
it. No, I'm ruining your closing. It was beautiful.
It's okay. I'm
okay,
just going to go
want
bye when I'm done.
I just want parents to know. So back in, I don't know, it was probably 2012-ish. And I was teaching in a really rough school. It's like a 1 out of 10 ranking. And the kids are all poor, and they're all, you know, children of color, and they are all English language learners. And I was teaching econ, and I was like, you know what? Screw this. I'm going to give them leveled reading, and not leveled reading like the lame leveled reading elementary. Like we were dealing with the financial crisis of 2008. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to throw The Economist at some of you. And I gave them 4 choices of readings that were all on the same topic. And I want to tell your parents, all you parents were like, my kid goes to a bad school. My kid's not very smart. My kid has an IEP plan. My kid struggles with grades, blah, blah, blah. Okay, all of these kids struggled with grades. Like half of my classes failed every year. It was pretty standard for them. But, and I don't mean that, I don't want to qualify that. But here's what I'll tell you. They had 4 choices from easy to like medium to kind of hard to really hard. And I would say 15 to 20% of my classes picked the really hardest one. They are hungry for a challenge. And more than that, I think Dr. Sanders talks about this a lot. They are hungry for someone who believes in them. And so, sorry, I was getting emotional. This makes me so frustrated. They need you to know that they have it in them to do really hard things. And if you can do that, so this is for teachers too. If there's any weird teachers listening to this, right? Like you have a safe job, but give them something hard to do and let them rise, because they'll do it. They'll try. If they know you believe in them, they'll try. And parents, you have to not rely on the schools. You have to look at your kid and say, I love you and I believe in you. And I know you can do this very hard thing. You know, the deck is stacked. My kids at that school, the deck was freaking stacked against them. And they reached out for the hard thing. So you just have to give them the chance and then support them on the way up, and they'll get there. But it can't be something that we're like, oh, well, the schools suck and they're miserable and the teachers are bad. I agree with all of that. I do. But the kids are there and they only get one shot. So give them the damn shot. Give them the shot. And if they miss, help them aim again and give them another shot and keep going, because they'll shock you with what they can do. And I mean the kids from the lowliest backgrounds, some of my most brilliant kids who boosted crap out of cars at night because their moms were drug addicts and they had to sell stuff to keep a roof over their head, were some of the most brilliant damn kids I had. And society wants to throw them away, and the schools want to just give them a D and get them the hell out of the room, and that has to stop. And the only way it stops is with parents and those kids who don't have parents. If there's a teacher out there listening who's in classes with these kids, that can be you. Not to take the place of mommy and daddy, because you can't do that, but you can give them the shot. So give them the shot, please. I'm begging you.
What Paul said about fear of a different outcome is really like the root of the courage. That makes so much sense to me, Paul. I'm gonna write that down. I'm gonna meme that has to be made into like a poster or a t-shirt or something. But it is so true, because when people tell me, no, this is too hard, it's too much for them, you should go slower or whatever. And remember I said, you can back up to go forward. That's very different. That's very different than let's just dumb it down. Very different, because I'm still expecting excellence when I back up. I'm expecting mastery so we can move forward. It's not, we're just going to do everything ABC and boring. And when you push them and you push them, my comment is, what's the worst that could happen? Like you said, dissonant, so, okay, they fall down. It's hard for them. They don't succeed right away. It takes 4 or 5 tries. You gotta keep encouraging them. Maybe they don't succeed at all, but they saw that you believed in them and, you wanted to try with them. That if that's the worst outcome, it's still better than I didn't try, they couldn't do it, no one ever believed in them, and they go through life with that feeling. That is so corrosive to the human spirit, to human morality and ethics, and that permeates the society at large. That outcome, that fear of that outcome is why I continue to do this and do everything I do. And you're right. It's that courage. It is selfish. It's like, no, I don't want to live in that world. No, thanks. So I guess I have to have a new sign off. So thank you, everyone. Again.
Sorry.
It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. We'll do more of these. I hope that you all will consider coming back another time. There's so much more we could talk about.
Oh,
we would never tire of this. Like I said, we didn't even scrape the surface of the self-esteem thing. And I did want to talk about that because you did hint at it about the little bit of success and they, really gets them going. I think there's a whole show on that too. People are still saying we've got to give them self-esteem first and then they can succeed. And they got it exactly backwards. And I would love to talk about that. But in the meantime, I've had you all for over 2 hours. So bless you. Thank you. And we will talk more soon. All right. Thank you so much. See you, everybody.
Bye.